We notice that throughout this passage, MLK connects the past and present to create a better future for the nation as a whole, desiring to work together with everyone else regardless of race, exemplifying the ideal leadership qualities. In his first sentence, he points out that he takes into consideration the white people's opinion on their actions. So like exampling it's an example of his refutatio, as he points out the flaws in their arguments while also listening to them. He also shows higher understanding of time, as he understands that even though people ask why that they didn't give enough time for the government to act, he understands that throughout the past, no, just sitting there and waiting for for the government to act has done nothing for them. He emphasizes his desire to create a unified community through his repeated uses of we in first person, and he's including the whites in his arguments. And through this diction of my friends, he's he's like he's appealing to the pathos and their emotions, as he's trying to break down the discriminations and the social border between the whites and blacks. He's building up his Unoya to try to make change in with goodwill, and especially here he says nonviolent pressure, which implies that they won't do any violent actions and won't harm anyone. And he also shows that he's strong as he's trying to break through the status quo, which is another important leadership aspect. He needs to have the courage to be able to step forward and break break the status quo that's so unjust, and to create a bit a more just future for his race.
The initial lamentably sentence shows how he connects to the past failures to gain freedom, and this emotional appeal shows how he's not afraid to point out the truth and receive possible criticism, displaying his courage as a leader. In addition, he adds in the empirical connections to the past and reveals a causation, giving a solid reason why he's doing this because of that past failure, leading the people towards freedom. In the second, we know through painful experiences sentence, he once again connects it to historical evidence and widens the scope of the problem, connecting the issue globally by showing how the painful experience applies not only to him but to people around the world. And he shows that change by nature is painful and will not be brought on by the complacency that the others are encouraging, and this repetition of necessity to rebel as a leader encourages this fight against injustice. The antithesis between demanded and oppressed allows King to emphasize the need to rise up. Additionally, this repeated emotional appeal to rebel draws on the people's anger and sorrow to fuel the will to fight. The well-timed phrases, as well as the wait and the never, show how the irony of rejecting the bystander's failure to move encourages all to take action now. He uses the pronouns to separate these people from him in the movement, refuting the bystander's argument of the need to wait. And he repeatedly displays the irony of how the bystanders who are too afraid and non-motivated to take direct action now request the leader and people who have the will to fight and who are actively suffering under this injustice to keep waiting for a promised peace that would never come. This once again showing that historical evidence of a repeated failure of peace. And through this, MLK points out that hypocrisy. And finally, this never part shows increases in degree from wait to never, and repeats his message of the necessity of direct action, and connects the present troubles to the past again.
So in this last paragraph, we see MLK being very aware of the time here, and also making that global connection. So at first we see we have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights, right? So he's making this reference to the past experiences of African Americans, and using that as sort of an appeal to the pathos, right? Painting this picture of like a long struggle that they've gone through. And then at the same time, while referencing the past, he says that the nations of Asia and Africa are moving with jet like speed, moving, right? Putting us in the present tense, as in what's going on right now and where other countries are, right, with that global aspect, where other countries are in sort of progressing towards the equality that he believes is the right thing. And so we see political independence again referenced here, um, and it's just making a callback to the comparison between where the U.S. is and where those other countries are, right? Saying that we creep at a horse and buggy pace towards gaining a cup of coffee at a lunch counter, and that horse and buggy is sort of a reference to, like, older like pre-industrial revolution, sort of literally referencing the past, saying, look here, we're stuck in the past and we need to move. Furthermore, we see that the singing darts of segregation say to wait. Again, he's using a reference to those people who are telling him that complacency is the right thing to do, or that he's moving too fast. And then with waiting, we also see this other call to, time, and being aware of the fact that to him, the time is now. And there's no time to sort of stand around expecting this issue to be fixed on its own. And he's very aware of that. And then, sort of the most repetitive theme throughout this whole paragraph, we see the use of, he's very aware of how he's using pronouns to sort of make sure he's not creating unnecessary division within his audience, right? So he says, when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers and your sisters, brothers, right? And then also, again, this very dark imagery of killing and just depressing overall stuff about, being unable to take your children to Fun Town or Funland. And this shows just a very emotional appeal, while at the same time using the word you is kind of forcing the audience to go through that experience with him and to put themselves in his shoes. And it's different than being accusatory. It's more of a, holding their hand and kind of walking with him.